Certain events of the First World War stood out in the public consciousness, were huge propaganda opportunities, and caused a great public outcry. The sinking of the Lusitania springs to mind, but one that meant far more to an empire that was actually at war was the execution of British nurse Edith Cavell. I'm Indy Nidell. Welcome to a Great War Bio special episode of Who Did What in World War I, and today, my star is Edith Cavell. Edith Louisa Cavell was born December 5, 1865 in Norfolk, England. Her parents were the Reverend Frederick Cavell and Louisa Sophia. Edith was the eldest of 4 children. She was educated in the local vicarage and did not attend the local school, but later went to Norwich High School for girls. After school, she worked as a governess, including a 5-year stint in Brussels before training as a nurse at the London Hospital. In 1907, she was recruited as matron of a newly established nursing school in Brussels, Belgium. Although by modern standards it was anything but modern, there was no running water in the bedrooms of the 50-some-odd patients and only one operating theater. But it was very successful in introducing modern nursing techniques to Belgium. When the war broke out, Edith was not actually in Belgium, but was visiting her mother, now a widow, in Norfolk. Against the wishes of her family and friends, she returned to Brussels, feeling that her nursing skills would now be needed more than ever. Brussels was occupied by the German army on August 20th, 1914, and wounded men, German, French, Belgian, British, began to pour into Edith's clinic, which became a Red Cross hospital for all nationalities. 60 British nurses were sent home, but Edith and her assistant remained. Over the following week, as the German invasion of Belgium continued, many Allied soldiers found themselves trapped behind enemy lines. Some were executed when they were caught, and there were a number of atrocities against civilians at this time. Cavell took it upon herself to aid British servicemen, hiding them in the hospital and in safe houses around Belgium. She helped some 200 British soldiers escape to neutral Holland. Now, she continued, of course, to work as a nurse, treating soldiers from both sides, even as the occupying Germans threatened strict punishments for anyone actively aiding and abetting the enemy. She did not tell her co-workers what she was doing, not wanting to get anyone in trouble with the Germans. And though she kept a private diary, it was sewn into a cushion to protect her secret life. Still, in mid-1915, she came under suspicion, and on August 5th was arrested and put in St. Gilles prison. She would spend 10 weeks in prison, and at her trial, she admitted her guilt of the crimes with which she was charged. She was sentenced to death. Diplomats from neutral Spain and the neutral United States tried to intercede to have her sentence commuted, but it was in vain. The night before her execution, on October 12, 1915, she told her captain, "This I would say, standing as I do in view of God and eternity, I realize that patriotism is not enough. I must have no hatred or bitterness towards anyone." She was actually one of a group of 5 people sentenced to death, and her execution, together with Philippe Bouck by firing squad, was carried out early in the morning. She completed her diary with the entry, "Died at 7 a.m. on the 12th of October, 1915. Here's the thing. Cavell, and Bouck, were sentenced on the 11th, only 1 day before the execution was carried out. Cavell herself didn't find out she was to be shot until 8:30 on the night of the 11th. See, General von Saubersweig, the German military governor of Brussels, figured that if he hurried the execution, the media wouldn't pick up on it. He was wrong. The moment Edith Cavell, the nurse, died, Edith Cavell, the heroine and martyr, was born. The American embassy, among others, made sure that the story was widely spread, and it was hyped in both the British and American media, where Cavell was portrayed as a martyr and those who executed her as murdering monsters. This was, in point of fact, contrary to Cavell's own last wishes, when she specifically said she did not wish to be remembered as either martyr or heroine, but simply as a nurse doing her duty. Over the following 2 months, Cavell's fate helped double recruiting in Britain, and her name became one of Britain's wartime rallying symbols. Hey, here's a side note that you can take any way you like. That same autumn, the French executed 2 German nurses who were helping German soldiers escape, and when asked why they didn't publicize this similarly to Cavell's execution, the German High Command replied, "Why complain? The French had a perfect right to shoot them." After the war, Cavell's body was taken back to Britain for a memorial service at Westminster Abbey, and then transferred to Norwich to be laid to rest at Life's Green on the east side of the cathedral. The king had to grant an exception to an order that prevented any burials in the grounds of the cathedral to allow Cavell's reburial. In the Church of England's calendar of saints, the day appointed for the commemoration of Edith Cavell is the 12th of October. Now, this is a memorial in her honor, not any sort of formal canonization, and so not a saint's feast day in the traditional sense. Following Cavell's death, many memorials were created around the world to remember her. One of the first was unveiled on October 12, 1918, by Queen Alexandra on the grounds of Norwich Cathedral, during the opening ceremony for a home for nurses, which also bore Edith Cavell's name. The first film made of the story was the 1916 Australian silent film, The Martyrdom of Nurse Cavell. She's also been honored by Mount Edith Cavell in Jasper National Park in Alberta, Canada, and Edith Cavell is featured on a UK commemorative £5 silver coin, part of a limited set issued this year, 2015, by the Royal Mint. Edith Cavell was a vicar's daughter, an English matron of a teaching hospital, and a fairly influential pioneer of modern nursing in Belgium. Her strong Christian beliefs motivated her to help all of those in need, both German and Allied soldiers. She once said, "I can't stop while there are lives to be saved." But of course, no one remembers that today, do they? Her execution by the Germans remains one of the more shocking episodes of the First World War and received worldwide condemnation and extensive press coverage. And while you may believe her execution to be justified or not, it showcased the effect propaganda could have upon civilians, but also the effect the war itself was having on civilians in the actual theaters of war. And newsflash! Seriously, I have a newsflash. Now, this episode was edited from notes on November 12th, 1915. The very next day, Flo, our social media guy, found a recent article from the Telegraph that writes that Edith Cavell was actually spying for Britain and passing along German military secrets. Dame Stella Remington, former Director General of MI5, asserts Cavell was indeed passing along intelligence. Actually, the German governor of Belgium at the time, Moritz von Bissing, who had an awesome mustache, maintained at the time that she was a spy, and that was the justification for her death. It seems he may well have been right. You can find the link to that article in the description below. The actions taken against civilians in Belgium in August and September 1914 are often called the Rape of Belgium, and you can see our episode about that right here. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.